You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
What is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for hitting that play button. This is the Dave Bullis Podcast. Not too much going on, or not really too many pre-show notes, other than the fact that I'm actually starting to work on that short trailer project I talked about last year. You know how it is. Time got away from me, and I kind of ran out of time. And I didn't want to shoot
perform.
it in the
I wasn't one of those like babies or kids,
so I'm
toddlers.
actually
Like,
back on
"Come
track
here,
now to actually shoot it this
do
summer.
that thing you do." I'm like, "Can everyone
it's
be
just something
seated?
fun
Let me dim the
and creative
lights."
to do. Just
and
kinda,
I already
get
had
back
like
in the groove of
routine,
things.
so I was just
again,
a natural
I actually started this
performer.
podcast as kind of a creative
and I just
outlet.
being
So I
from
wasn't really doing
LA, it
anything
wasn't
anymore
so
in terms of
outlandish
making
to
stuff, and that's
pursue
what's kind of
acting
spawned this
and comedy.
podcast.
But I really
So
fell
it'd
in
be
love
kind of
with
cool to actually get back
comedy
in
and
the groove
making
of
people
things.
laugh.
And so thank you everyone who
I ended
reached
up
out
going to
about
UCLA
that.
for
I'm going to be
college, so I
updating
would be
everybody very
performing
shortly.
in the
So if you want to help
clubs
with that,
and in the
if you want
different
to help me make
venues
this thing, or if you want
learning
to support this
improv
podcast,
and, you know,
use
really
my
getting good at my
affiliate
craft.
links
But I
in the
always wanted
podcast
to be
notes below.
an
It helps
actress.
out
I
immensely.
didn't have another
Or if you're
profession
interested
that I
in
had.
helping
Like,
out
I
on
left Wall
the
Street,
production of
so I really wanted to be creative.
Feel free to shoot me an email.
It was
it's
always
just Dave
it was always
at
going to be that.
davebullis.com.
So any jobs I've taken have always been
and
so
just
I could
feel free to shoot me an email, and whatever you want to help out with, just let me know.
So
and
getting
I'd be more than happy
into
to
production,
see if we can work something out.
just became
So
part
without further
of wanting
ado,
to see
my guest this week,
my voice.
this is actually the second time we
actually
recorded this,
put
because the
into
first
something
time the file
that you
became
could see
corrupted,
and replicate.
these kind of wonderful
so
people
instead of
agreed to
just
come back
performing
on
live, actually
and do
being
it
able to
again.
create content. Which brought me
says a
into
lot. So I want to say thank you very much
and then I
for
teamed
them
up with Josh,
agreeing to come back out and do this.
We really started
my
getting
first
going
guest
on
is Shelley
production.
Pack. She was an actress,
We
writer,
did
and
a
producer, and she
short
actually
film called
stars
Dashiell, A Journey
as
Through
Molly
Autism,
in the movie
and that was our
Chasing
first
Molly.
project together.
And it is actually directed by my
we worked
second
really
guest,
well
Josh
together,
Sutherland, who is the
we
director
wanted to
and
make a
special
feature.
effects editor for Chasing Molly.
So
and this is actually
that
his
journey
feature film
began,
debut.
and
So I'm going to be talking
after
about
funding kind of
all
fell
of
through
Chasing
for our
Molly with
other
them,
movie we
how
had,
they
we said,
casted
let's
Kurt
make
Angle,
something
how
that
they
we
got
could
Felicia
shoot.
Day,
And
how they got
then
locations.
became Chasing Molly.
And the movie's actually out right now.
And we're
Gravitas
just really
Ventures.
proud of what we were
we've had
able
a
to
ton
create.
of guests, by the way.
It's a very independent
for
film,
movies from
but that also
Gravitas.
gave us
So
the benefit of
I don't
being
know if
able to push the
Gravitas will send the
envelope
people to me, or it's
and
just
make
coincidence.
something
But either
really,
way, I think it's really freaking
unfiltered.
cool.
It's
So
not
without
a
further ado,
cookie-cutter
this is
comedy.
episode
It's very different, and
232 with guests.
We say
Shelley
it borders
Pack
the line on outrageous
Josh
and
Sutherland.
inappropriate. So
That's good, honestly, because I think everything that everything needs to happen, especially nowadays.
Yes.
And far too many cookie cutter comedies get made, and we've all seen them. And I don't really think it's the fault of the filmmakers per se. I think it's more the fault of like some marketing exec or some exec somewhere was like, hey, look, we'll take this template and kind of like, this boilerplate template and kind of like push it here and just kind of fill in the numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I don't want to overstep you, Josh. Did you want to?
Yeah, Josh.
I think we talked a lot over this podcast. But yeah, I mean, there was no one telling us, hey, pull back, or I don't know, or you can't say that, or people won't like that, or that's too much. We really, whatever we thought was the funniest thing we put in, and if it was not quality, we got to take it out. No one was like, you need to put that in, or pad it here, or we need this scene. If it wasn't quality content, you won't see it. And we weren't forced to water down any of the comedy, which was just so liberating to be able to create something that you just find genuinely funny without any restrictions.
Right, and that's awesome, and that's there's no test audiences, nothing like that. but and Josh, how did you get started? In the whole visual effects side and behind the camera side of things.
Man, I like to tell people I've been making movies forever. I was definitely the kid who took their parents' camcorder, and luckily enough, my parents were very supportive of that and let me, use our VHS VCR to edit some movies and make some mistakes growing up, make some small short films and stuff like that. And, I went to film school at the University of Texas, and after that kind of made my way out to the West Coast, and I've been kind of grinding in the industry ever since then. And, I'm just super glad to have supportive parents, right, who kind of encouraged that no matter what I wanted to do. I will say a funny, kind of a cool little story is when I was 10 years old, I still remember my uncle taking me and my brother to see The Matrix, and he told us, he's like, hey guys, don't tell your mom I'm about to take you to this R-rated movie, but I want you guys to see it because they spent 2 years learning kung fu just to, before they even started making the movie, just so they could do it right. And I remember seeing that movie, being a 10-year-old, and it blowing my mind. And I feel like ever since then forward, it was definitely something I was like, this is what I want to do. And I was lucky enough to get an internship with a company called Captivate Entertainment right out of college. And my main goal was like, I want an internship on the lot. I want an internship on the lot somewhere. And their office at the time happened to be on the lot at Universal. And so, being fresh in the industry, just out of school, and getting to go onto the Universal lot every day was really awesome and really eye-opening. And once I finished that up, I got my first big kind of gig in the industry was I got to be a set PA on a movie called Skyline. If anyone remembers that movie, it's about aliens sucking people out of the sky. And, I ended up being on set for that whole run. And, it was the visual effects company that actually made and produced that movie. And they were like, hey, do you want to be, in the office? You're really great on set. And I was like, hey, a steady paycheck. Yeah, let's try that. That sounds good. And so I ended up started working for them. And literally, through that, I feel like I've done every crew position under the sun, right? Like from key set PA to VFX editing to then, first AC to camera operator to location sound mixer to colorist to producing to directing. And so just literally ever since then, working my way up and just cutting my teeth, literally, like I said, learning every crew position you can. And that led me to obviously wanting to create and direct my own projects. And like Shelley said, we kind of came together to make a short film called Dashel, A Journey Through Autism. And ever since that project, I knew me and Shelley were going to get along really well, because we finished that short film, and literally every 2 weeks I'd kind of get an email or I'd get a message saying, hey, from Shelley being like, the movie it's playing, we got into this such and such little fest and it's playing in Turkey. And then I get another one saying like it's playing in like London, and then it's playing in Russia, and it's playing all over. And I think that little short film probably screened in probably like 35 countries by now. Yes. But Shelley literally would just keep sending it out everywhere. And that not only proved to me that like she'll just go to the end of the earth for her projects, but like she's not going to take no for an answer. Like we're getting that thing seen by as many people no matter what, and we'll do whatever we have to do to make that happen. And so ever since then we basically have teamed up, and we're like, what do we really want to do? And we have another comedic property that we've had some investors fall through after we've packaged it a couple times. And so literally Chasing Molly became something that we were like, hey, look, what can we make ourselves that nobody, no matter what, can tell us we can't do this, right? I'm lucky enough to have a nice cinema camera package and some really nice sound gear, and I was always been like, we have the tools at our disposal to do something here ourselves if we have to. And we kind of sat together, made the script and the story, and just figured out that we're going to try to do this one ourselves. And I will say, filmmaking is a team sport. When you see all those, you're sitting in a movie and you see all those names scrolling by in the credits, and you're like, how many people worked on this? This is insane. Or you're sitting here for 10 minutes, right, for that little bonus scene at the very end. And there's a very good reason for that. It's because filmmaking is a huge, huge team sport. And so it's almost impossible to do something yourself. And so I'm just so happy with what Chasing Molly has become. And even though we did most of the legwork ourselves, there's no way we could have done this without calling in all of our favors and all the help of so many tremendous people, crew, friends, actors, and the list goes on and on. And so we're just super happy to have it finally out to the world.
Well,
yeah, I think it's good. Oh, sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No problem, Shelley. I was just gonna say, I was gonna make a quick joke with Josh. Whenever you can tell after you screen a movie if you're running into a filmmaker, because they'll always ask you one question, and that question is not whether they like the movie, not this or that. They'll ask you, Josh, just one question, and that is, what did you shoot that on?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like. Definitely the question, you know who is in the industry or not, right, by what they're asking, and it's pretty apparent that this one was definitely a labor of love. I'll say that.
We shot on 4K camera, red. See, I'm learning all of this. It was a kind of a perfect marriage, so to speak, because Josh could do everything behind the camera. And then I had built, kind of a repertoire of comedians that I've been performing with for years and, making content. And basically we could come together, the two sides. So all the comedians you'll see in the movie are all, personal friends I've worked with before. And so when you ask them, hey, can you do one day? You'd be doing me a huge favor. They'd be like, yeah, I'm going to need you to do this project for me. You kind of like, okay, well, no problem. And then getting like Felicia Day, she's a friend from, everyone's like, how did you get her? We performed together. We used to do improv together. So when I asked her to do this and she read the script, she wanted to give her time. I say donate because no one made this movie because we paid them. So it was almost like a donate. You felt like a donation, like I should be writing them like a tax write-off for making the movie. But everyone did it because they felt they loved the project. They fell in love with the story. They liked the script. And what started as the two of us picking off whatever we could, then it snowballed as we started to get bigger and bigger talent on set. And, when we got Kurt Angle's this big wrestler guy, for those of you guys who don't know, that was a cold call. We did not, I definitely was not one of my comedy friends, and we did not know him at all. So there's someone who fell in love with the project because he had no reason, to have us fly him out from, Pittsburgh to come out to Los Angeles to make an independent film. So we were very fortunate that we had something that also attracted people to it. So we were very. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, we definitely I've been lucky enough, thank God, through that visual effects company, a lot of other jobs, just to be under a plethora of projects right in the last 10 years, from everything from San Andreas to huge multi-million blockbuster movies, being on set for those and seeing how they operate firsthand, to super independent shoestring productions, to music videos and commercials and everything under the sun, right? So I get to see a lot of how it works and how it's supposed to happen. And this film was not made like a traditional, feature film, like 30 to 60 days back to back, right? So we kind of knew that going in, that we can't have a traditional shooting schedule. We can't have a bunch of the traditional perks or crew positions that generally exist on a big feature film set. And so we structured our shooting schedule and the way we knew we were going to pick it off, and sat in pre-production and planned all this out very meticulously so that it would put us in a situation to win. So when Shelley, would go then to reach out to some of these people who are her friends to do us these favors, what's the one thing that a big actor or, a celebrity has the least of in the most? And that's, frankly, it's time, right? And so we knew that if we could structure the shooting to where we could reach out to them and be like, hey, we're not going to have any ADR. There's no chance this is going to go into more days. Basically, we're going to shoot you out in one day. We're not going to, there's not a lot of company moves on this day, blah, blah, blah. There's no chance of overtime. It basically would put us in a situation to win. So we knew that we were doing that. And so when we reached out to a lot of people, we definitely got a lot of answers, and it's not just a simple like, no, sorry, I'm booked, or I can't give you 4 days, or just a lot of those stipulations. We kind of set ourselves up to win.
I like that. That's a very good explanation, or a very good quote too. Is we're setting ourselves up to win, and also the pitch to different people is about time. You're absolutely right. That's the number one thing that a lot of them don't have a lot of, and even when they do have time, it's meticulously planned out. They're constantly getting hit with pitches. They're constantly getting scripts sent to them, and they're constantly getting their agent going, "Hey, you got to do this," or don't do that. And so whenever they do actually commit to a project, they don't have a lot of time before the next one starts.
For sure, and as Shelley said, I mean, luckily she's friends with a lot of the comedians in the film, but Kurt was a complete cold call, and it was super cool when we were sitting discussing Mr. Black, and I was like, I really want like a big, muscly type, over-the-top personality to play this, and we were kind of like, what about professional wrestlers? And we were kind of feeling some other professional wrestlers, and Shelley was like, what about Kurt Angle? And I literally kind of had a laugh out loud moment as I was like, I don't know if he'd be into this after knowing what some of the lines that we've been writing and talking about on the page, and we're like, what do we have to lose, right? And that's kind of been the whole model for the whole movie, is like, why not? What do we have to lose? So we sent him the script. He actually read it. He actually liked it. A few days later, we were in touch with his agents. I will say I know his agents probably told him not to do it. He wanted to do it anyway, and so like Shelley said too, right? Like, he would come out. We worked it out. He's locked in the movie. Our crew was bigger. We ballooned up that day. We had the locations, and it's just it was super cool. It definitely has been like that. It's just the project's been like literally just like the little engine that could, just steamrolling out of control, basically.
So what were some of the other wrestlers that you were considering? Just for conversation.
So,
I mean, yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
I don't know anything about wrestling. Like, I used to watch Glow, and so like to me, I wasn't intimidated about reaching out to anybody. So I was just on social media, just like, it wasn't like, oh, I've got to get this guy, The Rock, John Cena, no plan. I mean, it was literally like, we need this. So I'm like, okay. And I just kept like, it went down that Twitter like wormhole where it's like, you should follow so-and-so. You should follow. I was like, I should follow them. And then I just started reaching out, and Kurt was we had some people that were like, okay, but they were wrestlers. I'm not even going to throw anyone under the bus. Let's just, like my dad was like, I remember Johnny Dumbbells, like that guy. It's like not a person anyone would really know. So, Kurt, I was like, what do you think of this guy? And Josh's mouth is on the floor. He's like, that's an option. I'm like, yeah, I got this. I got his manager. He's going to, so we made it happen. Like Josh said, you have to be really resourceful and meticulous with scheduling. None of our actors are on set sitting. You're there. You come camera ready. I mean, like they said, we had bigger names on set. We had hair and makeup. But aside from that, just, you come ready to go. You can be creative. I think that was also the lure to get a lot of these really talented comedians. There's a lot of things we do as actors to make money, commercials and stuff like that. But this was an opportunity to kind of be as funny as you wanted to be, without limits. So I have an improv background, and I knew that I would get certain improvisers that are going to nail their lines in the first take, maybe two, maybe we need two for safety. And then we could improvise together. So you'll find the dialogue, like, of course, all the jokes are in there, which I'm thrilled about. But then there's also like really kind of genuine moments that seem organic. And it's probably because we improvised it. Not every scene and not every character we could have do that. But the ones that, you'll see Jim Cashman, who's Jamie on the Progressive commercials, basically a national treasure. He's a Groundlings friend of mine. So I love working with him. We have a great chemistry. So I said, listen, I need you for, I think we had him for 2 days, but we shot every single, we just had him going every minute, 10 pages a day, whatever we had to do. And then you would find these really great moments where we could just improvise. And so I think it feels very different. It doesn't feel scripted and like, here comes a punchline, or uh-oh, this is gonna, they're gonna fall into that. I mean, it has to be the content and the writing and the story that was king. We didn't have money for special, huge, special effects or anything like that. So it had to be quality content. The script had to be good. And I think that's the great thing about independent films, is that they're not made just because you have a bunch of, celebrities in the movie or, a big name attached or anything like that. Independent movies get made because it's so powerful, the story, or it's so, funny or something like that, that everyone jumps in to support it. Otherwise, the movie doesn't take off. We know how fortunate we are. It's not lost on us how many people, have ideas, and it's hard to get made. We've been there too, so it took a lot of years in production and doing on-camera and off-camera stuff to be able to get to the point where we could tackle the feature.
Right. And it's a good point too, Shelley, is, even when you do have like everything kind of lined up, even like, in some of these, huge multi-million-dollar productions, things fall through all the time, for whatever reason. And we've all been there, in one way or another, where you're a part of a production, and maybe as an actor, or you're, either, or whether it's even your project, or, you've kind of been there where these different projects all just fall through for a number of reasons. And Josh even was alluding to that too. So things just always sort of, something happens and it kind of creates a domino effect. But just in Chasing Molly. So Shelley, when you were writing this, did you kind of have this in mind? You didn't want to write something into the script that was going to be almost impossible to get.
Yeah. So this was written like we're going to make it. So when we'd have the story, and Josh would be like, okay, when you have 90 pages written, we're going to start shooting. And so when I was writing it, I attempted we would do like my character and like one or two other characters. So we knew that. And then we would try and not write locations that we couldn't get. But if we did need to get one, we said, you know what, we would really need a pawn shop scene. So I had to get a pawn shop. And, start hitting the pavement. Everyone says no. And you find the one, and it happens to be the best pawn. I mean, with the most random stuff you've ever seen. Another funny production story. So we get this pawn shop. We can't afford to like rent it out and close it down. So it's open for business as we're trying to get a clean scene. So we had these two women that were in there like, oh, what a great Sagittarius ornament. You're a Sagittarius, aren't you? I mean, the small talk, picking up everything, looking at it with a magnifying glass. They didn't buy anything, but they wasted an hour of our time. And I'm looking at the light, the sun's going down. We're like, my comedian friend is like, quiet on the set. He's not part of the crew. You know what I mean? So it's like, it didn't get more independent. But then when you pull it off and you get the last thing before the sun goes down, or you get me finally walking into the pawn shop and we get it. I mean, the victories, the struggles and the hurdles might be bigger, but then so are the victories. So you would get so excited to be able to pull something like that off.
Yeah,
I
was never again. No closed locations, non-closed locations. Never again. This lady looked at Joey for about 2 hours in front of our scene, and we're having a do-si-do around shooting this scene around her, basically, because she would not leave the store. It was crazy.
So did when she walked in, did she like look at the camera, look at you, Josh, and just kind of like blank, didn't like put two and two together?
It was the craziest thing, because she literally would be like looking at rings in the same like cabinet glass shelf counter that we're shooting at, and I'm like, you don't see all these lights, you don't see this boom mic or the camera, and like was oblivious to it for literally about 45 minutes, and then was like, oh, are you guys making something here? Like, is this a school and we're like, we've been here for about an hour, like trying to shoot through your head.
I'm about to buy all of these things for you and just give it to you because I need
what
you
do you
to leave.
Want? Yeah, we'll buy it for you.
We'll buy it for you. It's on us. She's like, oh, you're making something? So I think something interesting you also said, Dave, was like how projects fall through. You do one small piece of it. So Josh and I, we had to have the attitude that since we are like steamrolling this whole thing, we're also really attached to every part. So every edit, we're the ones watching it. All the ADR, we're the ones listening to it. So we're very attached. So in the same way, we were never going to let this movie not be made or not get put out there, which is something because we were wearing so many hats while making it.
Yeah, and I just want to speak a little bit to, kind of cool filmmaking knowledge here about Shelley was saying we would like, talk and discuss scenes, right? And we'd be like, where do we want the story to go from here? And so we definitely, structured the story so that we could make it ourselves. And when I say that, I mean like, okay, well, we live in LA, so we're going to set the story in LA. We know we can't shoot 30 to 40 days back to back because we don't have money to do this too much straight. So we're just going to pick it off like, nights, weekends, just every time we can shoot. And so how do we do that, right? Well, we can't really then have continuity or scripting on set because we're switching all these days up. So let's just make it like a run the gauntlet story where it happens like in a night, a day, and a night. And that kind of basically, like I keep saying, it put us in a situation of win, right? So we're spread out over a bunch of different days or weeks. When you show up to set, you're kind of wearing the same wardrobe that you wore in most of the scenes. It kind of eliminates needing a wardrobe person on set. It eliminates having to have the continuity person to figure out what you were wearing or which way you turned out of this door and stuff like that. And so we definitely structured it so that we could pull that off.
Yeah, and that's such a great idea to do that is kind of, figure out what you have and kind of build around that rather than, vice versa. But, even when you do that, you kind of hit obstacles. So I wanted to ask, what was the hardest thing to get out of the whole production of Chasing Molly?
Ooh.
I think organizing the Kurt day where we had to literally, it had to be so precisely planned out because we had this guy who's so big and who's used to like really nice sets. So we had to really, I think that pulling off the end with Kurt was probably the hardest day.
For me personally, it was probably just the whole post-production.
Post-production was the hardest part. Honestly, post was the hardest part.
Just because
it really was.
I'll say, like, I'm lucky enough to know a lot of people in the industry, right? And you're kind of like continuously helping other people. And like I said, filmmaking is a team sport. So that way you're just stacking all these favors, right? So you can call them in when you need them. And post-production, we had some big people work on it in post, but you're not paying them enough to where it's like, hey, there's a hard deadline, right? Like I'm paying you X amount of dollars, it's due on this day. It's kind of like, hey, I know you're working your main job and doing this on your free time. For me personally, please finish as soon as you can. So post-production kind of dragged on because of that, and it's just the nature of the beast. But basically, that was the hardest part, in my opinion, was getting that done. And as well as I said, the Kurt day was definitely our biggest day. And when I say biggest day, it's still pretty small relatively in terms of big sets. We probably had 20 people on set for that day. But, just a cool story of how, the stars aligning for our movie was basically we had this really cool location that we actually shot out and made it look like 3 locations. But we were there, and it's like a backlot place. Shout out Reyes RV, where they kind of rent and also store RVs in this like parking lot in this huge like backlot area. And we shot in their office, in their attic, in their backlot, inside their studio, and all over. And anyway, we're gonna have Kurt Angle, and they happen to just rent Star Wagons. And so he's gonna show up. We're having this big set day, and they're like, oh, we'll just plug in this putt-putt generator and turn on one of these Star Wagons. And so he shows up, and he has a Star Wagon, and his makeup's in there waiting, and all that to the nines. And it just looks like way more slicker and like than it really is, right? Something like that.
And also that reminds me, so in post we wanted this really cool special effects shot, and it involved Kurt, and in order to track it, we needed like a model of his head. Well, that's not easily obtainable. I mean, and we can't be like, can you put your head in this mold? It would really help like make this shot look great. So Josh and I are scouring. He ends up finding a guy who made a video game of Kurt and had his exact head dimensions that we needed. And he's like, I don't know if I even have this. Sure enough, he had it. And we, got it from him. So like, again, the shot looks amazing. Josh has these connections with people who have worked on X-Men and Avengers and everything like that. And they're working on our movie. And then they're like, well, to make this look really cool, it would be really great if we had this. We're like, the dimensions of Kurt's head, how are we going to get that? And then we deliver it to them because we found this guy who made a video game and had his exact dimensions, stuff like that, to be able to, the stars had to align for that to happen.
Yeah, for the people who want to know like the technicalities, and like I said, like I'm lucky enough to know some extremely professional people, and so exactly my buddies who work on these huge visual effects movies, and they're used to getting all the proper things, right? Like if you're gonna do something 3D to someone's head, you really need like a model so that you can map those animations and all that on top of that. And so the guys, unfortunately, they're like, hey, is there any way we can get a head model of Kurt? And I'm just like, guys, this is not that movie, right? Like, I don't even know if that's physically impossible. And me and Shelley are literally like, do we fly to Pittsburgh and then have to get Kurt another day? And this is kind of how, like we just talked about, we sold the movie on not bothering you ever again, right? So we're like, how do we figure this out? And I'm scouring messaging boards, and lo and behold, happened to stumble upon a guy that worked on the WWE Raw, one of the like PlayStation or Xbox movies, like 10 years before that, maybe even earlier. And he's like, I did Kurt's. He happened to do the modeling for Kurt in that game. And he's like, I think I have his head model just chilling on my machine. Let me check. And like a week later, I literally have a head model of Kurt Angle and send that over to our 3D guy and our VFX team, and they're like shocked. And it's just another story of the stars aligning for us.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, what if that didn't exist? Like, was there like a plan B or a plan like C or D that like if that didn't exist, like what you would have done instead?
Well, as we were saying, we're like, do we fly? Because there's some really cool apps and ways to get scans, and I've worked in VFX a long time, and I definitely know what's needed to get that properly. And it was just going to be like, man, we're going to have to bother Kurt to go get it, or frankly, it's just more time and energy, unfortunately, for the VFX guy, or just have to make that shot look really good and spend more hours and work on it to make it all work with the geometry of his face without having that is very, very difficult. And so the short answer is no. There's the other option is to not have it. And so it's kind of just crazy that we did.
There'd be lots of things like that where there'd be something like I had to have, like we were really looking for like almost like a theme song for Chasing Molly. And I fell in love with this song. It was a Fatboy Slim song. It's like, okay, I'm not a singer, but it goes like, back once again for the Renegade Master, deep for damage up, power to the people. I'm like, Josh, I need this. It's like, you're crazy. What do you mean? You're crazy. Well, it turns out Fatboy Slim, it's not his. He licensed it from this other guy. I find that guy, and we end up buying the hook. And then we were able to make this really cool song. We find someone else and pay them to mix it. So now we have this like song that's we own the rights to it, but it's also familiar to so many people who listen to that Fatboy Slim song. And everyone's like, how did you get that Fatboy Slim song? We're like, we didn't. We bought the hook that everyone remembers, and it's a totally different song. Fatboy Slim song is okay. I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm a fan of the song, or I wouldn't have wanted to get the hook. But stuff like that, whereas either we really needed this, like I felt like we needed it or wanted it, and we had to go get it no matter what. And there's always a way. You just find a way. I mean, that is filmmaking. Or you have to leave it. We shot one scene that was so dark, we couldn't fix it. It could not be fixed. So you'll never see it. But if it was something we really felt like we wanted, we'd have to find a way to make it happen. And when it is just the two of you, you make it happen. There is no one else. It has to be you, or, you don't have a choice.
And just like I was saying earlier, right, Shelley, not taking no for an answer. I mean, it's just like she said, like, we have to have it. We're going to find a way to get it. And whether it takes us, whether we find it tomorrow or it takes us 10 days, like 2 weeks, we're going to just keep pushing until we get what we need.
It kind of reminds me of a funny story. When I was shooting my student film, quote unquote, it was with a bunch of friends. I kind of broke all the rules, and the first thing I ever shot was it was a feature film. It was my student film, and it had it was a bunch of friends and myself making a movie, and my one friend who was actually the star of the movie just vanished for the summer. Like, he wouldn't, like, he did one of those things where he's just like, I'm so tired of making this damn thing. And I'm like, dude, we're almost done. And he was like, I just don't want to make it anymore. And he just kind of vanished for that summer. So I sat down with my friend and we were talking about how we're going to do this. And he's like, well, what if you find a guy who looks like our main actor, and we just try to act like that's him, and we just kind of finish it that way. And he's like, they used to do it for different movies, and you just kind of get a guy that looks exactly this. It looks similar, and you kind of shoot it differently. So I actually went on a site, and I found a guy who did look like him. And I started to talk to this guy. I was like, yeah, you look just like my friend. And the site was called uglynewyorkmodels.com. And I handed God, that's a true site. I swear to God. And it was a site dedicated to people who have like exotic looks. You know what I mean? Or like they have like these different types of looks. But the one looked just like my friend. And I actually was going to bring him down from New York here to Philadelphia. And my friend actually ended up coming back in at the same time. And I said, did you see what you made me do? I said, I had to scour a modeling website. And he looked at it and was like, ugly New York models. And I went, yes, this is where he's at.
This is what you brought me to. Yeah. This is your fault. You did this.
That's so good.
Well, he thought it was...
No, actually, I was going to say a funny story like that, like what we were going to do. So there's a part of Chasing Molly that features the grapefruit technique. If you're not familiar with it, Google it, not in front of your kids. Josh shows me this video, and I'm like, this is the most disgusting, random thing I've ever seen. We need to have it in our movie.
We need this.
So we need this. So we're going to recreate it. We're going to go on out. We had people auditioning for this grapefruit technique. I was going to like work with someone I work in my other job, not even an actress, but I was like, would you do this? She's like, yeah, I'll do it. Well, we end up finding the woman who made the video. We got her. And another like huge score. Josh and I finally find, this is our Moby Dick. We finally find her. And we go back and forth. And she ends up, we buy the footage. So the footage you see in the movie is from that actual video. So it was another huge, well, what would you have done? We would have, figured out a way, got an actress to recreate it. You do what you have to do. But when you have that kind of ingenuity and that won't take no for an answer, you end up, we found her, we got her and she agreed to do it. So, it just was a huge get. We also got this guy on set, Scar, who plays the, Hispanic gang leader. Again, this guy I didn't know. He wasn't a comedy friend of mine, but I start scouring YouTube and I find these videos called Cholos Try. And they're these viral videos about, I guess a group of cholos, and they try all these different like stereotypical white people things. And it's very, very funny. And I see this guy, he's got tattoos on his face, on his neck, on his hands, on his toes. I don't know where else he had them. And I'm like, this is him. This is just the guy. So then I have to find him. Dave, his name is not Scar. I don't know how to burst your bubble on this. That was not his given name. So I have to find who he is, where he is. Thankfully, we live in a day of social media, and you can, someone's just like a Twitter follower away from finding him. And I find him. And he agrees to do our movie. So we're like, yeah, just one day. You're going to come out. It'll be really, really fun. And we pitch it like that, and we shoot him out, 6-7 scenes back to back in one day. He was really actually a very nice guy, a super zen cholo, and it worked out great for us. But again, it's like we had to be really resourceful. We didn't have a casting director who had money and had casting sessions. If we wanted to get big talent, we had to find them. Stuff like that. So I think the product ends up being really unique because of the way it was done, the non-traditional way. They're not like, oh, this actor's been da-da-da, and he's on our roster. We have to get him booked on something. So we'll cast him in this movie. It was like, no, we just cast the best people we knew. And if we didn't have them, we would find them. So we had to be really resourceful, but I think the product really, paid off in the end.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things here is making an independent movie is calling to different people, not actually relying on a casting agent. Because like having casting sessions, it's something I've learned too, is having casting sessions and a casting agent and everything. It just adds a lot of money that when you look at it, unless you actually have budgeted that at the get-go, and you could spend that money elsewhere. You know what I mean?
For sure. I mean, frankly, we just couldn't afford to have it. There was a lot of, exactly casting sessions or rehearsals. And frankly, I mean, we didn't pre-sale any territories. This movie didn't have distribution going into it, anything like that. And so, Scar, who does these viral Cholos Try videos, we're trying to pad the movie, any role that was open with someone who had a big social media following. That way, if we did, at the end of the day, have to self-distribute this, we knew when the actors were at least blasting it out that they would have some sort of audience already built in, just in case, right? Because that was the biggest thing. You finish this thing, this long, arduous task that put all this work into it, and it really could have been like when we were sending it out, just, hey, good job, guys. Here's a pat on the back. Keep trying to make movies. And so we luckily had more than a few offers on it, and put us in a great situation.
And I like that name, by the way, that Shelley came up with, the Zen Cholo. I think that's kind of like a sequel movie for him that you should make at some point.
For sure.
Well, he actually, he's helping me, with certain social media things, and I'm just like, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? And he's like, Shelley, you're overthinking it. The movie's hilarious. I was like, you're right, Scar. I am overthinking it. The movie is hilarious. And I'm just like, he put me, I was just like, thank you. He's like this Buddha. So it really, it was cool because we have people who are in the movie, again, not for a huge paycheck, so they're not locked in their trailer demanding, brown rice and sushi. It's people who are, they love it because they love being in projects that they're proud of. So they knew at the end of the day it'd be something they're happy with. And we made it a cool experience. So it wasn't like, big lights and big trailers and catering and all this stuff. But you got to be part of a project that was completely different, and you got to be creative and have fun, and not be tied down with certain obligations from, corporate and stuff like that. I think Josh and I, we both come with making things where, had to be commercial or had to be appropriate for TV or stuff like that. And it was really fun and liberating getting to make a movie that's not appropriate for anyone. Really, really felt good. To be able to do that.
I will definitely not appropriate for everyone, especially my mother, right? I just want to say, sorry, Mom, I apologize. This is not the movie that she wanted me to be my directorial debut, but this is just how the cookie crumbles.
So
she's very supportive, but she's like, what about that Dashiell movie about Dashiell Journey Through Autism? That was the one she loved. We're like, we love that one too. Don't we still love that one? But
well, if she sees it, you can be like, well, hey, Mom, listen, Scar's a really good guy in there. He's like he's the Zen Cholo.
He's a Zen Cholo, Mom.
Oh, they love it, but yeah, it's just not the one she would have me make. But I will say, one of the coolest feelings in the world ever was getting, that photo of my parents in Texas holding my DVD up and sending me a selfie that they ordered that Blu-ray on Best Buy, and it makes you feel really good.
And that's kind of ties in with the next question I had too. Is you mentioned having the different actors with social media followings. When the movie, because the movie's on out right now, it's on all the different sites. When they started to actually mention the film, did you see like a correlation? I'm always interested in that thing, in that type of stuff where when they mention it, when they link it, when they etc. Do you see a spike in in interest to people talking to you online, whether it be on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And do you actually see like a direct correlation between that?
Yeah. So you have to be pretty. You have to search it out. I mean, a point blank, no bullshit. Like, when you sell that movie, to the distribution company, it's technically not yours anymore, right? It's theirs. And so we don't get a lot of numbers of how the movie's actually doing. They come out quarterly. And so it's kind of like a wait and see of like, how many is it really selling? But what you're talking about is when you see, someone in the film share it, or you see, all these other actors kind of like retweet and reshare or post a trailer. And then the best part is mainly seeing like how many people reshare those, because you get to see that and see all the comments, right? And it's just every time someone's, we're literally, it's not a separate PR firm or separate team of social media people managing these accounts like the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram. So when someone @s us or we see the shares or the whatever, we get to see all that and we see all the comments. And so it's not so much of seeing like a direct correlation in the numbers of the units, but it's basically seeing like the shares and then reading all the comments. I mean, that's the best thing for me in the world, right? Is like whether it's a hater or someone who loved the movie, just the fact that someone out there took the time to watch the movie, and then not only that, but get on their computer and type up and say something about it, just makes me feel super special.
I mean, first of all, we disagree on the fact if someone writes something mean, whether we should comment, clap back, as they say. But the best feeling, like Josh said, like we are the PR team. So when you hear a comment where it's like, I've been hearing about this movie, I got to watch it. I was like, what? He's been hearing about the movie. We're like weighing in on each comment, but it's great to hear like someone you don't know. It's not a friend or family, because you kind of like, even when you're friend, it's an acquaintance says they love it, you're like, but do you really love it? But then a total stranger is like, really well done, hilarious. I was like, oh my, it's because we're so attached to it. It wasn't just we did one part, I didn't just act, Josh didn't just direct. You feel like exponentially more proud because of the fact that this is something that literally you feel like you made by hand. We're so attached to it. So it's crazy to see other people that you don't know that have watched it without you telling them about it. So they, I'm like, oh, it's working. The PR is working. But when Kurt tweets out something, it's huge. I mean, he's got a huge social media following. But like Josh says, we don't know the numbers. So we just put our heads down and we just keep going as if the movie could be doing extremely well, or it could be friends and family, but it doesn't matter. Either way, we push just as hard. And I think that's also the mentality, is that no matter what or how you think it's going, you keep your head down and you keep working. You keep doing podcasts. You keep reaching out and networking. It's another thing that we're getting into that we didn't really know ahead of time how to do it, but you find out. You start swimming. You figure it out. And now we're really getting going on networking with people who will really love the film. And so it's nice to see that people are appreciating the comedy and really are liking it. When someone says they're like fangirling out when they're talking to me, I'm like, what? It's just me, you know what I mean? But it's a cool feeling.
Yeah, and just to kind of, as we're talking about casting and everything else, one of the reasons I was asking that question is I was a part of, I was kind of like a consulting producer for a movie a few years ago, and that topic actually came up, and the reason was because they wanted to cast these kind of like, I guess the word would be Instagram models. I guess that's kind of, and they wanted to cast them in the movie because why? Well, hey, they've got this huge social media following each. And they were just wondering, about this. And when it came time to present them with a contract, they both were like iffy about actually mentioning the project and this and that. And and they wanted to see it before they mentioned it and blah blah blah. So. With my little voice, I was like, "Is this really worth it, everybody?" Like,
Right.
Are there
don't know.
followers?
It's a gamble.
Right,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Are their followers even going to really care about them in a movie? Because they really follow them because they're doing Instagram stuff. You know what I mean? They're Instagram. They're posing on Instagram. You know what I mean? So I always that whole correlation there. Oh, and by the way, in case somebody wants to know. They did end up casting the Instagram models. They did not mention the project at all.
Oh no.
Yep, and they had to keep like tapping them on the shoulder, like, "Hey, could you mention it? Like, it's kind of contractually obligated to do it." Never mentioned it, and that was a whole point of contention there, and a lot of the producers were fighting with each other. But again, I because when they had the last meeting. I was like, I kind of said, is it really going to be worth it either way? So, but it was two other producers who were like, one was like adamant that they had to be cast. The other one was like kind of siding with me. Was like, is this really, what's the point? But yeah, it that type of stuff happens. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you don't know. I mean, they're not, like I said, we couldn't be like, not only are you going to do this movie for basically no money, but we also need you to like then promote it, right? So. We would never risk like the part for like, we wouldn't risk the acting for like a social media following. So for example, we have a Maxim model that has 1 million followers, Tiffany Stanley. She's a cover Maxim model, but we cast her in a model role where her being a model, we set her up to win too. So, she's got a huge following. We don't know if she's going to tweet or say anything, but at the same time, that's why it's like, well, either way, whether she does or doesn't, we need someone who's going to be good for the part. We would never compromise the part or the movie because someone had a social media following. Because we had tons of people that we were like, okay, should we get this person? They've got X amount of followers. Is it worth it? We went back and forth, and our round table is just Josh and I. So we have to be unanimous. And usually it is. If we both, if one agrees and disagrees, then we find it's not the right thing anyway. So we're both always like, oh, yeah, we have to do this, or no, it's not worth it. So we definitely had to make those decisions, and no one is obligated to. We didn't have anyone who said we absolutely will. Basically being fortunate combined with like really hard work and dedication. We wouldn't have jumped into production had Josh and I not been experienced, me in front of the camera, him behind the camera. We wouldn't have just been like, let's make a movie. We had both been really working and getting really good at our craft before we would jump into taking on a project like this. So we're really, really proud of it's really a surreal feeling to have the project completed and then to have people like it. You're like, it's really amazing. I'm still kind of having an outer body experience about the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's always awesome when the movie's finally done and you actually get to see it. It's always that feeling of like, holy crap, this is actually possible. Oh my God, what the hell were we thinking? You know what I mean? It's like, you finally get to the end. But it's funny, Shelley. For everyone listening, this is actually a redo of the. I actually interviewed Shelley and Josh before, and this is a redo of that interview because the file became unusable. So they were so gracious to come back on, and it's just I had a feeling of deja vu there, Shelley, because suddenly I lost you there for a second. I'm like, oh no.
Someone like calling me. I'm like, nobody is more important than me talking about this movie right now. So I apologize for that, but no, let's see. Josh and I, we're willing to do this next week if we have to. We know that this is how it goes. Like we've had plenty of things where they're like, well, that's not usable.
Oh,
so.
I mean, some scenes of the movie, right? Like we'd spend days going out, and then we'd just get back and be like, man, we can't. I mean, a lot of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor, and you got to separate yourself and realize, like, once you take off that director hat, you can't think about, oh, how much time and money and energy went into shooting this, and just have to be pretty vicious in the editing room and not. Oh man. Cut some stuff.
There were so many jokes that I was like, really, you can't make this joke work. He's like, Shelley, we'd have to reshoot this whole. I'm like, but it's such a good joke. I mean, but you have to, again, it's like, well, take off your, writer, actress, hat, can't save every joke and be a producer. And a producer would say, this isn't quality. It does not quality enough to be in your film. You have to be really, this is your baby. So if it's not quality, it needs to be cut. And so many times I was just like, man, I hate to lose that, but Josh is right. It does not look like, it's not up to our standards. But it would be very difficult. And he would get real Edward Scissorhands in the editing. And I'm like, whoa, what happened there? But in the end, like, all my jokes that I liked got put back in. I'll just say that right now. It's not an I told you so moment, Dave. It's just I was right. Which is a little worse than I told you so, I think.
So, just where can everyone find Chasing Molly at right now?
Man, we are lucky enough to be on almost anywhere that you can stream a movie online. We are there. If you get a movie through your TV, Cox, Spectrum, Time Warner, basically everywhere except Dish, VOD. We are on, Amazon Prime, Fandango, Redbox, Vudu, just iTunes. Literally, iTunes. Anywhere you can stream a movie or get a movie digitally, we're there. If you want a DVD or a Blu-ray, we're Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, Target, Barnes and Nobles. It's super cool. Literally almost everywhere.
And I'm going to link to all of this, everyone, in the show notes, and then. Because I know all the things we talked about too, I'm going to link as well in the show notes, everybody. And so, Josh, and Shelley, just in closing, I know we've been talking for probably about, roughly 55 minutes now. Just in closing, is there any parting thoughts that you wanted to give to sort of put a period at the end of this whole conversation?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I just want to say first and foremost, thank you, Dave, for having us on. I sincerely appreciate it. And as Shelley said, it's not. It's not lost on us how rare and special this is. I know a lot of people and friends that can make a feature-length movie if they had to, but selling it is a whole nother ballgame. And so we feel super special, and I hope everyone goes out and sees it and supports independent filmmaking, and go check out Chasing Molly.
Yeah, I just want to say also thank you so much, Dave, for having us on and supporting independent film. We're really proud of Chasing Molly. It's something very, very different. It's comedy that, you'll be very shocked, I think, at certain points. But, I'm surprised by the people who are like quoting, the movie back to me. It's a really cool feeling. And if you're looking for something different, like you haven't seen, and you want to support independent film, watch Chasing Molly. We'd really appreciate it.
And where can people find you at online, Shelley?
Shelley Pack, SHELLEYPACK. Mainly Chasing _Molly. I'd really let's keep it business right now. I'm just kidding. But Chasing _Molly. So look for us on Twitter and on Facebook, Chasing Molly Movie, and Instagram, Chasing Molly Movie. So definitely follow us to keep posted and updated on where you can watch Chasing Molly next.
Yeah, and if you want to find anything I'm ever working on, I mainly post to Instagram. It's at Sutherland Film, and that's SUTHERLANDFILM. I'm lucky enough to be working on some pretty cool projects currently, and obviously me and Shelley have some more projects in the pipeline, and if you ever want to see any of that stuff, it's online there.
And everyone, again, I'm going to link to that all in the show notes at davebullis.com. Twitter, it's at DB Podcast, and I'm going to start using my other Twitters again. Somewhere along the line, Shelley and Josh, I thought it was a good idea to have a different Twitter account for all this stuff, and I have like 15,000 Twitter accounts now and Instagram, and I'm like, I don't know which one to use anymore. But but anyone that's about the podcast, I use mainly. I have the other ones too. That's just my me, and I'm always I'm always like, should I even post anything on this? You know what I mean? I kind of lose track of all of it. But everyone, it's DaveBullis.com. I'm going to put all of this stuff that Josh and Shelley and I talked about in the show notes, as well as linking to Chasing Molly, the movie. It's out now. And Shelley and Josh, I want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much,
yeah,
Dave.
Thank
we
you.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dave.
My pleasure. And when you have a next project, whatever that might be, already, just let me know, and I'd love to have you back on.
Yes.
Definitely. We'll be back.
Yeah.
Find Dave at davebullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.